Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to another episode of Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, the Town Crier. I am your host, Roger Landry, the founder of the Liberty Beacon Project, and the purpose of this show each week is to awaken you to issues that you may not be aware of. This is, again, what we like to term as, well, we don't like it at all, but what we term as programmed ignorance. It is not the fact that you don't wish to know. It's the fact that you're not exposed to or you're not made aware of. And this is one of the biggest issues any free society has, is when the government starts to decide what is good for you to know and what isn't good for you to know, or to decide what are you capable of and what are you not capable of. And we could go on and on. One of the biggest things that most people seem to forget is, or far too many people consider, is how do things affect them? If you are my age, I'm a baby boomer. I will be 65 years old in August. Then most of my life, or most of the time I'm going to occupy space on this planet or this plane of existence, is behind me. But what are we doing to all of those in front of us, or the latest generation born? Is this generation born to fail? Never in modern history has a generation been so disadvantaged. We're going to go over that today. You know, I constantly rant not only on the political ineptitudes of this supposed republic, this constitutional republic, but also on the double-edged sword, because as our rights are being taken away, so is our health, and it is directly proportional. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, is our latest generation born to fail? All right. The life of our newest generation today does not even come close to resembling what I experienced as a child 3 short generations ago. So when I sat down to write this article, these are the things I considered. And again, let's go back to the term perspective. I have 3 generations of perspective, as do most or all baby boomers, at least 3 generations of perspective, or 60 years. It gives us the ability to stand out of time and make comparisons you who have been alive for 20, 25 years just can't make, because America today is nothing at all like it was when I was your age. And again, is the perception we have from the drastic changes we've seen, does this lead to failure to the present day or the last generation born? Most close to my age remember walking through just about any typical American neighborhood and hearing the unavoidable sounds of children laughing, yelling, and playing. You literally couldn't avoid it. We remember looking out the window in the morning to see many children making the trek to their local schools, running, laughing, and causing harmless mischief along the way. It is hard to forget the cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, or the war games we played for hours on end with toy guns that fired darts, pellets, and even BBs. Were there accidents? Yup. Were there injuries? Yup. But we grew up to be mostly mentally stable, healthy, and independent adults. So what the hell has happened in 3 short generations? Because it surely isn't as I just described it to you. So let's get into that a little bit. If the alarm bells going off concerning our children today are not deafening you, you may be beyond the reach of what I have to say. Yeah, it's that freaking bad. Let's go into why. Here are just a few easy to find general statistics concerning the last generation born. These are statistics, not guesses and not, propaganda. These are statistics. This generation suffers the highest level of autism, ADHD, ADD, diabetes, food allergies, cancers, autoimmune disorders, of which there are a ton, etc. Of any generation ever born, making them the most chronically ill, sickest generation ever born, with 54% of this generation suffering from at least one chronic disease. You've all heard me say that before, but it fits right in here. Researchers are now stating that this generation will be the first generation in history to have a shorter lifespan on average than their parents. Read the last sentence again. That's exactly what it says, because at that point in this article, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. And that sentence, if you stop to consider, this generation suffers the highest levels of all of these diseases. 54% of all of these children born suffer at least one chronic disease for life, and researchers are telling us that their lifespan will be shorter than yours and mine, and that's the first time in recorded history this has ever happened. That's the first statistic. Yeah, it's a couple of them, but it's all bunched into what's this about. Let's go to the second one. This generation is tied to electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, etc., etc., etc. From the time they are old enough to comprehend the functions and operation of these devices, making this the most physically isolated generation ever. Instant satisfaction or gratification supplants the need or want for physical and social interactions on many levels, which may often lead to conflict or disappointment. You don't get that same conflict or disappointment when you can just shut it off or go somewhere else electronically. Let's not understate the known physically damaging properties of these devices on our much more vulnerable youth. I have stated a statistic many times that our children going through school today, kindergarten through 12th grade, that at least 50% of those females will be sterile by the time they graduate due to the Wi-Fi in their classes. This is not a guess. Again, it's a statistic. Let's go on. This generation suffers the age of Common Core education, where a group of corporatists, not educators, okay? Common Core was developed by corporatists, like Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, not educators. And it's designed a system of education to make all our children common. When the hard work of excelling brings you no more recognition than those who care so little as to even try, the drive to excel is assassinated or pronounced dead on arrival. Next, this generation is in danger of overexposure to the most politically correct, easily influenced, crybaby, self-centered generation ever born, the millennials. Colleges today have puppy and Play-Doh rooms where those who are triggered can retreat for self-therapy and comforting isolation. These millennials are the new parents or influencing parties, mentors to this new generation. There's a small spark of hope here, okay? From what I have seen in the research I have done and the people I have talked to, that this new generation, the children of these millennials, are, at this point in time, considered to be the most conservative or may lead into the most conservative generation born since the Reagan era. This in itself may not be a saving grace, but anything is better than the SJW and the millennial torture and the crybaby situations. Can you imagine any of you out there, any of you that are my age? Can you imagine, all right, us baby boomers, when we were in I don't know, 5th or 6th grade or even 12th grade, and we got a little upset and we wanted a place where we could go and pout and feel safe for a while? That crap didn't happen. That stuff didn't exist. But this is what our children, these millennials, our children's children, felt they are entitled to. Why? Because we have socialists and communists, because they admit it themselves, teaching our children these things. If you feel triggered, then you have a right to lash out. Nobody else does, just you. So we have gone through, at this point, about a dozen points that are not anything positive as far as reinforcing the early childhood and the young adulthood of this generation we're discussing. So let's ask the question again before we continue. Is our latest generation born to fail? Everything we've said so far kind of leads you in the direction that even those who would be mentoring them, even those who would be teaching them how to survive going forward, their parents, the millennials, the SJWs of the century, that's their influence. Stop and think about this. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? The future of humanity is our children. This is not a maybe, but indeed a cold, hard statement of fact. Over the last 3 generations since the birth of the baby boomer generation, my generation, we have witnessed with each succeeding generation a steady and geometric increase in health-related issues, as well as a definite increasing lack of independence, lack of social skills, lack of tolerance, lack of emotional stability, with over 20%, and it's actually closer to 30% at this point, of all youth in America are now on psychotropic or psychiatric drugs. Did you hear what I said? How about the lack of preparedness to face the real world? How about how many millennials we still discuss, or the children of these millennials who should be out living a life as adults are still living in their parents' basement? That is the subject of thousands of jokes we all hear, several on a regular basis. But it's the truth. Humor is always based on some level of fact. So here we go. As America moves forward, is it not, well, callous or far-reaching to state, we are in trouble, people. We are. If we are looking for someone to blame, do not blame these children, because as with each succeeding generation, they are a product of their upbringing, and all we as parents or grandparents have exposed them to or allowed them to get away with. As each succeeding generation continues to push the envelope across the spectrum, do not blame the children. Look in the mirror and stare into the eyes of the guilty. Overprotecting, overreaching, under-focused, guilt-ridden parents who basically, not all, ignore their children as they watch them slide off into an instantly gratifying electronic media world, the ultimate babysitter, as mom and dad either have to work 2 jobs or more, or really just are not, via their own upbringing, interested in constantly entertaining or mentoring Junior. And we have seen an increase in this with each succeeding generation since the baby boomers. And self-justified neglect is one massive reaction. Today, this is not the exception, but much closer to the norm, as has been progressing, as I have stated, with each advancing generation. So the question that's begging to be answered is our latest generation born to fail? In a lot of cases, we can show you an example of what we're talking about. We can show you an example of this overprotection. We can show you an example of the doting. We can show you an example of what this leads our children to believe when they see us reacting like that. So what I'm going to present to you now is just one such reason why so much of what I have stated exists. Yeah, this was originally published about 2 years ago, but again, you know how much I love these gems, these things that haven't been around, haven't been seen for a couple of years and probably never got much attention at all. But when you put them together with what we just presented to you, they help make things a whole lot clearer. So let's read this. Let's go through this short attached article I put here, and maybe it'll open your eyes to some of the concepts that I've given you of Nerf guns and eye injuries. Nerf gun, not nerve gas. The temporary injury of a girl whose brother hit her in the eye with a foam Nerf dart has made the news, at least in the Daily Mail. Love or loathe them, the fact that they ran a large article with 4 pictures on this one incident, and remember the word incident is used when there really isn't much happening, is a perfect example of the way we look at childhood today. It is always through the lens of what could go tragically wrong, our liberal friends, and what we can do to prevent the rare problem from ever happening. So here we go. Is your child's Nerf gun safe? Foam dart from the popular toy leaves girl 9 hospitalized with bleed in her eye. Exclusive. Abigail Earnshaw was hit in the eye with a foam dart from a Nerf gun. It immediately caused a dark patch of blood to slowly form across half of her eye. Luckily, the youngster recovered fully and has been left with no lasting issues. But experts warn the popular toys could cause someone to go blind in the future. Experts warn. Has gone on to be one of the main reasons we don't let our kids do anything these days. Yeah. What are they saying here? The fact that something hitting someone in the eye could cause blindness? Of course it could! Nowhere does the article mention the fact, which I found on Thrillist. Over 445 million darts are made per year. Enough Nerf darts have been sold in the past 5 years alone to circle the earth 4 times. Some complete nut actually did the math and found the staggering complete number of darts Nerf has ever made is 4 billion, over 4 billion, since the dawn of darts. Wow! So rather than saying, parents relax, this outrageously popular toy gets kids playing, interacting, and running around, it found the 1.5 billion times a girl got a temporary eye injury. Let me read that again. It found the 1.5 billion time a girl got a temporary eye injury. That is what parents are up against. A reality warping view that sees any childhood activity as too dangerous to allow. Is your child's Nerf gun safe? Is your child's walk to school safe? Is your child's anything safe? I've seen articles on everything from sippy cups to stuffed animals. Are they safe enough? Hell no! More elaborate, expensive, time-consuming, childhood stifling precautions immediately. We didn't get our sons Nerf guns until we saw with our own somehow spared from foam dart blindness eyes how much fun they had playing with them at their friend's house. After that, our home became an arsenal. This doesn't seem to have made our kids any more violent, and they still have both eyeballs. Actually 4 eyeballs, if you consider 2 of them, knock on wood, cautiously after donning a baseball glove or an oven mitt or other hand protection. Stop and consider everything you've just heard me say, including the short article about the Nerf darts. The statistic, 1.5 billion temporary eye injury. Your child has a much higher probability of getting struck by lightning. So why do you not put your child in a Faraday cage to protect them from being struck by lightning every time you see clouds in the sky? No. But you're going to keep them from having Nerf guns. Okay? And you're going to tell them how bad that is. Because 1 out of 500 million got a temporary eye injury. If you take everything I have said, if we discuss how it was when, I don't know, you younger people listening to this, we're your grandparents, when we were children. We shot at each other with BB guns, and occasionally an eye was put out. We shot at each other with darts. We threw lawn darts at each other. Not seriously, but we did things that today, look, we ran around with guns, pointing them at each other, going bang, bang. Try doing that on a school playground today. You'll be suspended. That's not funny. You're an evil child. We are raising a generation today that is born to fail, a generation that is isolated electronically, a generation that if anything upsets them, there's a puppy or a Play-Doh room for them with sippy cups. Do you think I'm kidding? Would you like proof? Go to the Liberty Beacon and put any one of those keywords into the search window. You will be inundated with articles that will give you details to a gnat's ass. I am not blaming these children. I am not even blaming the millennials, who I feel are the biggest reason for everything I've just explained to you. I am blaming every succeeding generation, the parents of, where we allowed more freedom, where we allowed more liberal thoughts, where we allowed them to push the borders to a point where today there are no borders. We're looking at the societal destruction of this country. If autism continues, and the scientists are screaming that as soon as the next 5 to 6 years, 1 out of every 2 children born could have autism. Stop and think about that. If half of a society is crippled for life, all right, and half of a society at a minimum has at least one chronic illness for life, and I can go on. What do you think the American society is going to look like in 10 years? It already looks bad enough, my friends. This should be something the government is funding like the moonshot, like the Marshall Plan. We are looking at the death of America and the American society as we knew it. This is something we need to take seriously because, and let me bring this out as I brought it in, the biggest question on my mind is our latest generation born to fail? Never in modern history has a generation been so disadvantaged. Stop and think about it. Please think about it. Again, I'm Roger Landry, the founder of the Liberty Beacon Project. This has been Eradicating Programmed Ignorance to Town Crier. I appreciate all your time. I really do. And if I've made a dent in anything any one of you out there is thinking, then this has been a successful broadcast. I wish you all a very good day.